moving quickly, another handoff to Rankin. Rankin finds a hole, he's at the 30, makes it to the 20, he's got one man to beat. Rankin walks into the end zone. Into the backfield, Braden Wright looks over top, he's going to try to find a man, he's got Alec Tatum. Tatum bobbles it, but he's in the end zone. What a connection between Braden Wright and Alec Tatum. Handoff to Rankin, Rankin right up the middle, and he's in the end zone for a Bearcat touchdown.
You that the views expressed in today's show do not reflect the views of KZLX, KNWT, or Northwest Missouri State University. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
Sam Steinmeier with you today, Nolan Brooks and Austin McNorton, Andrew Botwinick, currently out there at the Bearcat pitch calling the soccer game currently taking place, but we've got all the sports covered here as well. We're going to start with Bearcat football. Northwest Missouri State, number 7 team in the country, started at home. Their first home game of 2019 started off a little rocky, 14-14 at half, but after Washburn took a 17-14 early third quarter lead, Northwest blew it open, ended up with a 38-17 win. But let's just start with the second half. That's where all the good stuff happened. What'd you like seeing from these Bearcats to run away from the Ichabods?
What I thought was most impressive was Braden Wright really settling into this offense as far as his wide receiver core. This Northwest offense is stereotypically known for the run game, having running backs that can, burst through or use their strength and carry defenders on their back and then run all the way through for a touchdown. Where in this game, you saw Braden Wright exploit the pocket. You saw him read the defense a little bit better. He had an interception, but he still was aggressive. 20 of 29, 278, and 2 touchdowns and a long pass of 43 yards. You like to see it. He's using the arm a little bit more. He's still a little mobile, and he's running around a little bit, but this game you saw him really hone in on his throwing skills and his true quarterback skills.
And I think that's going to work well for Northwest. Braden Wright only 6 carries, ended up with 47 yards, so didn't run him near as much as we saw last year. Instead, 20 for 29, 278, like you said, 2 touchdowns, Nolan. But for me, it was also a much better day for the receiving core. Week 1, not a lot of them got involved, struggled to get open. This game, especially in that second half, guys running all over the field. You got Alec Tatum more involved this time around. Monty Donadell didn't necessarily get all the touches we were looking for him to get, but got a lot more looks. You also look at Caden Davis getting involved in the offense this week, caught a 39-yard touchdown from Braden Wright, was wide open earlier in the game, and Wright had to roll to the opposite side as the defense was coming at him and couldn't get it to Davis. But just the offense, especially in the second half, was extremely consistent. That's what we were looking for from the Missouri Western game. They came back and played a much more consistent game, especially that second half.
I think you also have to give some credit to the offensive line a little bit, because Braden Wright was able to go through all of his reads on a lot of those pass plays. He was even able to find his tight ends open on a couple of times. Marcus Andrews had a big game. He had a 43-yard reception. And you mentioned Caden Davis now getting more involved in the offense. Really has just let him settle in. And I think a lot of that also has to do with the fact of how successful Justin Rankin is. And it gives this offense just so much balance. I think a little bit more than what we saw last year. Braden Wright looks extremely comfortable, and a lot of that is because he has time to throw the football because those linebackers have to focus on the run so much.
Well, and Justin Rankin, 17 carries, 93 total yards, 2 touchdowns. Both of those touchdowns came in the second half, and it was Braden Wright that kept this team right there with Washburn, and then once Northwest got rolling, they just fed the ball to Rankin, and Rankin was able to help end up taking this team to a win.
Yeah, Justin Rankin, he said 93 yards and 2 touchdowns. Whenever you get that out of a running back, it really takes pressure off your quarterback. And Braden Wright, he did play very well in the second half. But, Nolan, you did mention the interception. That wasn't necessarily an interception on Braden Wright's part. That was really the Washburn defender kind of tore that away from Gus Gomez, I think. And so even with that, you can take that pick with a grain of salt, and that just really shows how well Braden Wright played that Saturday, because he took that interception and he built on it and didn't try to force stuff. Like Austin said, started throwing to his tight end, and once the passing game was set up, then Justin Rankin, he started giving the ball to him more, and it's really just too much for the Washburn defense to handle in the second half.
I think that's a good point you bring up about his interception. Is normally when you see quarterbacks throw an interception like that, especially young quarterbacks, they're consistently saying, "Okay, I got to make up for it somehow. I got to have a big play or something down the field to make up for it, and get my team back on my side and feeling confident in me." Braden Wright didn't do that. He stayed with it. He stayed trusting in his offensive coordinator and the rest of his receivers to say, you know what, I can just throw it across the middle, and I know you guys are going to go make a play for me, rather than saying, all right, I got to throw it 80 yards down the field and have a big play here. He didn't need to do that. He just said, you know what, I'm just going to keep doing what I usually do, and he did it to perfection.
And I think of the other side of the football, you look at the Washburn offense versus the Northwest defense. First half, Washburn, they were rolling. Mitch Schurig, he was 18 for 31, 243, a touchdown and an interception in this game. Most of that came in the first half. You kind of look at the Washburn drives. You had 3 first-quarter drives, 5 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. 10 plays, 23 yards. Missed a field goal early for Washburn, but a long, sustained drive, a lot of plays, couple penalties on that one. Then they had another 8-play, 40-yard drive where they had a fumble in that first half, and then they finish it all, and then you have a 11-play, 87-yard drive to get a touchdown. Go to the second half. First drive, 14 plays, 76 yards. They continue rolling, only get a field goal out of that. After that, this defense, this is where this game really changed. The offense was consistent. They were keeping it a game. The defense figured it out, as there was still some concerns with Shama Pierre. Gassman wasn't playing in this one, and after Draven Anderson ended up with an interception late in the game, he looked like he was having some issues as well with his leg out there on the field. But those drives for Washburn after that field goal there to put them up 17-14, 4 plays for 3 yards, 7 plays for 30 yards, and that was the interception, the drive-ending interception by Draven Anderson, and then 3 plays, 8 yards, 5 plays, 9 yards, and that's how Washburn finished this game out, playing right there with Northwest, and then the defense really tightened up.
Well, and I think something that might have held Northwest back in that first half that they really fixed going into the second half, their tackling in the first half was scary, atrocious. It looked like they couldn't really wrap anybody up, and there were way too many plays where the drive should have stopped and be very identical to what you saw in the second half. 3 or 4 plays for 9 yards. There were so many opportunities for the Northwest defense to shut them down in that way, but their tackling really kicked them in the butt in the first half, and you saw a lot of plays blow up. Little crossing routes over the middle for the wide receivers for Washburn that should have ended in 4-yard plays end up expanding to 11 or 12 yards because they can't wrap them up and bring them down right after the catch. And it seemed like Washburn kind of had their number for a little bit because they couldn't tackle, and they really were noticing it. So they started throwing more of the out routes where it would force them to tackle, and it almost bit them in the butt, but they recovered.
I think another significant part that you look at in this game is in terms of the first half versus the second half. This Northwest defense is kind of banged up, especially in the secondary. That first half, a lot of those young guys in there, Drew Dostal, of course, Trey Washington, some of these young guys were put into situations where they're not used to being out on the field in a lot of those games. In that second half, they weren't letting anyone get over the top of them. They weren't letting off any – I mean, they had I'm blanking on the Washburn receiver who was absolutely tearing it up.
Fletcher.
Yeah, James Fletcher, who was just going across the middle of the field at will. And these guys in that second half shut that down, didn't let any big plays go over their heads, and were able to come up with a lot of big-time tackles where in that first half they weren't there.
Well, and talking about the first half with Washburn, it was just they could do whatever they wanted over the middle of the field. It was 8 receptions, 113 yards, and a touchdown for Letcher. Colin Wilson, early in the game, it was pass after pass over the middle to him. He ended up with 8 for 68 and a touchdown. Other than that, 3 receptions from anyone else, 1 to 3 other players. So, again, Northwest, and we talked about this during halftime of the game, whichever team was going to make the better second half adjustments on the defensive side of the football would win the game. Northwest clearly did that.
Well, and I think something else you saw adjust is the fact that Northwest has so many more moving parts, and you didn't really see that in the first half. You saw them kind of stick to some core guys, and it didn't work, as well as you thought it would. So they start moving in more pieces. And, I mean, look how many – there were 21 receptions by, 7 or 8 different guys over the entire game. And like you said, Washburn, 2 guys had 8 receptions, and then 3 receptions were spread out between 3 other guys. So I feel like Northwest spread it out a little bit more and essentially outran Washburn. The defense really kind of honed in and shut down that offense over the middle, and then Northwest used their moving parts to outrun them and just basically, tire them down.
Yeah, and another thing to look at is whenever the Bearcats did get Washburn to third down in the first half, they converted. Washburn was 11 of 18 for third down conversions, and most of them came in the first half.
They were 10 and 13 at first downs at one point, and they finished 11 and 18.
Yeah, so, that really shows how much the Bearcat defense buckled down in the second half, but once the Bearcats got them into third down in the first half, Washburn's just like, this is a first down for us because, they couldn't stop them. Like you guys have been saying, throws over the middle to Colin Wilson or James Letcher Jr., they could really just do anything against the Bearcat defense on third down.
Welcome back to the Weekend Sports Kickoff here on X106, as well as streaming live on KNWT Channel 8's Facebook page. Jacob Blair, Sam Steinmeier, Nolan Brooks, and Austin McNorton with you as it's time now to talk about some college football. And the score lines continue to show the same thing they've been showing for a while. You get a couple close games, but a lot of blowouts in the past week of college football.
Well, this is stereotypical week number 3 of college football. Last week, we kind of touched on how maybe the NCAA should start to schedule more of those, out or interconference games where you see 2 Power 5s play each other a little bit more often in the beginning weeks. But, yeah, you hit it right on the nose. A lot of blowouts, but you got close ones, and, it happens.
Here was some of the issue of last week as well, as there were some Power 5 matchups that weren't great as well. You had Clemson beat Syracuse 41-6.
And that was supposed to be probably college game day.
Yeah, glad it wasn't.
Yeah, me too.
Alabama, they took down South Carolina, their SEC competitor, 47-23. Georgia, they didn't play anybody. They played Arkansas State, 55-0 there. LSU beat Northwestern State, 65-14. Oklahoma, Power 5 matchup here, beat UCLA 48-14. The list goes on. We won't go through all of these scores, but just these massive blowouts from these top teams. We're not seeing what they have yet, and we just got to keep waiting to see how good is Clemson, how good is Alabama. Is Georgia really there with those 2 this year? We don't know yet.
Yeah, but again, this is a stereotypical week 3. Looking at week 4, it's looking interesting. There's some more good matchups coming up, but I think this week you saw some teams kind of develop maybe a little bit more. You definitely saw some progress. You had some close ones. Penn State and Pitt. That was only a 7-point game.
Really,
a lot
probably
of people
shouldn't have been that
shouldn't
close.
have been. No, but a 7-point game. I bet the game of the week for me, besides the Iowa State game, was that Florida-Kentucky game. You saw a starting quarterback go down in Florida, and the backup come in and actually play pretty decent. So, honestly, you had 2 good games, like you said, then the rest weren't. So, week 3 of college football.
Arizona State beat Michigan State. There were some, and the problem is what Jacob was saying of how will we know? I don't know if we'll ever know how Clemson. I think that we're in a similar position with Clemson last year. We really don't know how good they're going to be because the ACC, I think, is pretty bad. It's pretty terrible, really. We don't know how good.
You think it's bad? It's bad.
And we don't know how good they're going to be up until maybe even the college football playoff. Just like last year, everyone was like, last year, speaking of, like Clemson or Alabama's the best team of all time. They're going to roll. Clemson's not that good because they don't play anybody because we haven't seen them. And then they go out and absolutely own the college football playoff. I don't know if we're in a similar situation, but I think we could be because we don't know how good they're going to be up until that point.
And before we get to some of the better games of week 3, a couple upsets. You mentioned Arizona State. Temple also took down Maryland 20-17, and BYU took down USC 30-27.
Man, we were all so high on Maryland too. What happened?
They were scoring points. they had to play on the road.
I guess.
They were only, I think they were only 5 or 6 point favorites. And last week when we were talking about this game, that kind of was like, they should be more. Well, clearly they shouldn't have, as Temple played well at home, and Maryland did not play well on the road.
Well, and I really didn't take into account how much the Temple defense would play a factor. I knew going into that game that people were worried about it as far as how well Maryland would play. I didn't think it would be that bad. I mean, they made Maryland look like Maryland made Syracuse look. You took a ranked team and you just shut them down. And, they look fantastic doing it. Granted, Maryland did kind of push back a little bit, but again, you saw Temple defense step up and really shut down a high-powered offense and limited really everything. There was no run game. There wasn't an outstanding stat for Maryland where you could be like, okay, well, maybe they had this going and just one area was shut down. No, it was the whole thing, and it was a fantastic game by Temple overall.
I think another game that I had circled that was kind of maybe eye-opening to me was what TCU did to Purdue, rather. They looked really solid, and I don't think a lot of people have really looked at TCU. It's like, they don't really have any big guys. They have a dual-threat type quarterback system with Alex Delton transferring from Kansas State to TCU. Gary Patterson is still one of the best coaches in the Big 12. Their defense is always fundamentally sound, fundamentally solid, and now they're up in the top 25, and they looked really good against Purdue. And I think this is a team in the Big 12 that's really kind of flying under the radar. But it wouldn't surprise me if they go and beat a Texas or an Iowa State maybe. I mean, this is a team that could potentially do that.
And you just mentioned Iowa State, so let's talk about that game. the game day game,
like 6 hours long,
all of that.
Yes,
and the finish to it as well. But probably the craziest game of the weekend. Clearly, both schools were ready for it, as we've seen all of the backlash that has come from that. But actually, on the football field, it was a interesting game. Again, the finish kind of was the highlight, that I guess you would say low light, that came out of that game. But this is the kind of game you expect from any rivalry. So Iowa and Iowa State at least did a good job making it seem like that rivalry game it should be.
Yeah, it was a good way to finish out Week 3 for college football, and it's just watching that game, seeing the ending. Just what a terrible way to lose for Iowa State, especially just in any game, but especially your rivalry game. That's just.
I've got one gripe about all of the things that came out of this game, is that the play, and the play we're talking about is on a punt. One of the blockers, the runners, ran into his punt return man, fumble. Iowa recovers. I wasn't able to watch this game live, so I'm getting the updates, and when I see everything, I'm like, Iowa State. My first reaction was they were up at that point and gave Iowa the ball in field goal range to win the game. And then I realized, no, they were down. And then everyone's like, Iowa State lost the game on this play. No, they didn't. They still had to take the ball, go up the field, and score.
A field goal.
A lot of things had to happen. In a low-scoring game where not a lot of scoring had been done up to that point. They still had to complete that. So for me, it was just a little bit of the semantics of the situation. It didn't cost Iowa State the game. It cost them a chance to win the game. There's a little bit of difference in that. That was my only gripe from this game. But
still, I think, in my opinion, Brock Purdy, he could have gone down the field into field goal range and beaten Iowa. I mean, even though there wasn't much scoring, I think Brock Purdy was good enough.
To my point, he also could have thrown an interception.
He could have.
He could have fumbled. His receiver could have fumbled. If we're going to play, it was kind of we're playing a what-if situation of, well, if he would have caught the punt, we don't know if they would have won the game.
It's just,
so don't say they lost the game because of that play. They could have had it won a long time before that. KNWT, there's my microphone. The button didn't get hit. We'll try that again. Welcome back to the Weekend Sports Kickoff here on X106 and also streaming live on KNWT Channel 8. That's better. You can hear me that time.
I can.
It's time for Off My Rocker. So again, we are reserving the last position for Nolan because he's
earned it.
Yeah, he's earned it. Mine this week is, we didn't talk about this earlier in the show, but Eli Manning has been benched for Daniel Jones.
Yes.
And the Giants are 0-2.
They are.
So here's what I've got. Daniel Jones will come in as the starting quarterback for the Giants, play well enough to earn Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year for the NFL.
Say it one more time.
So did you need the background before?
No.
Okay.
No. Say it one
Daniel
more
Jones
time.
is going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Back it up for me.
What do you mean back it up for you? Back it up?
I want to,
Well-
Back it up.
Well, one,
Daniel,
here's he's got Saquon Barkley, so you're going to have a good amount of screen passes
he's
for a
going to
bunch
hand
of
him
yards.
the ball is what he's going to do. He's going to say,
He
here,
really-
Saquon,
Okay,
take
we
this.
want to joke around for a little bit. If Daniel Jones just decides to give the ball to Saquon Barkley more, he should win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Just for giving him the ball more, because he decided to do that. But I think Daniel Jones comes in, plays well enough. You've got Saquon Barkley. He's going to bring a little bit of life back into that team. I'm not putting any win number on this, just that he'll win Rookie of the Year.
I don't know.
This is making my head hurt just because I'm a Cowboys fan.
Yeah. I think in the game against the Cowboys, he's going to struggle. The one game that he's going to play, he's going to struggle. He's not going to do very well. I'm looking at their schedule. They have the Vikings, the Patriots, the Cowboys again, the Packers, the Bears, the Eagles. This is a tough schedule. Yeah. So
I didn't say he was going to come
I
out
know-
and win the
I know you're
Giants a
not
bunch
saying-
of games.
I know that, but
If you
to
win-
come out and play good against these defenses, that's going to be tough. And I don't think Daniel Jones will play good against these defenses, so I'm going to say you're off your rocker. You're not, like, you're kind of crazy right now. Daniel Jones is not. After looking at the schedule, you're crazy.
I agree with Sam. My
He'll
God.
play good in one game, and that is the game on December 15th when they play the Dolphins. That game, he could earn Rookie of the Week that game. But not
Rookie of the Week.
But he will not win Rookie of the Year.
So, here, who does Daniel Jones probably have to beat out this year? Josh Jacobs
Kyler Murray.
and Kyler Murray.
I don't think he's going to beat out Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is a very good running back. And Kyler Murray, take a look at the Cardinals schedule, but I don't know. Kyler Murray's...
Oh my gosh.
Nolan, you've
wanna
made a
just-
lot of sounds without making very many words.
I want to throw that out the window, but the more you tell me who he's going up against, it makes it harder to throw it out the window.
Yeah,
I
Kyler Murray has games against the Giants, not a good defense. The Bengals, not a good defense. But he also has the Steelers, the Rams, the Saints, the Seahawks. So he also has a tough schedule defense-wise. But I think he's better than Daniel Jones. He's a better athlete. He's a better quarterback, and he's also got something that Daniel Jones doesn't have. He's got legs that can run. Daniel Jones is Eli Manning 2.0. And Kyler Murray's going to get yards through the pass and on the ground, and I think that adds up to Rookie of the
You
Year.
do know Eli Manning has won 2 Super Bowls, right? So saying Eli Manning 2.0
Okay.
isn't necessarily a bad thing.
I didn't mean Super Bowls.
Do you mean the old Eli Manning? The one we're seeing right now?
I'm just mean talent-wise what he can do. I'm not saying Super Bowls. I'm just saying like the same type of build of quarterback, pocket passer, that type of thing. And he also looks...
You do know who's on the other, who's won a bunch of Super Bowls lately, right? You know Tom Brady doesn't run anywhere.
Yeah, I know Tom Brady doesn't run anywhere, but the Giants
Like,
do
you can
not
be
have
a
the-
pocket passer and succeed in the NFL.
Yeah, but the Giants don't
Nolan-
have the offensive line to do that. At least not this year.
You're off your rocker. Daniel Jones isn't winning the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. That schedule doesn't support him at all. I understand that you don't have to win the game to win it, obviously. Because Saquon Barkley won it last
helps,
year, and the
though.
Giants were atrocious. And it does help. But, oh, man, I don't see him doing well enough to win Rookie of the Year. You almost have to play every single game in the season to do that. Saquon, the reason Saquon did it, Saquon came out and had an effect immediately. If Daniel Jones is going to be that, when he came in against the Dallas Cowboys, he should have came out and threw for 100 yards in the time that he got, and he got 3 or 4 for 17 yards and a fumble.